we've got L'Oreal first. It's a French cosmetics and consumer products group. Focuses on hair and skincare products. So this is exactly the stuff we've been talking about. Sales we'll see in a minute all around the world, but big in the United States of America, big in Europe, and then growing in the other regions. Market capitalization, $96.48 billion. That's if you look at the ADR in New York, but of course it also lists in Paris on the bourse there. Price to earnings ratio, 26.5. Dividend yield, 1.77%. Okay, so let's start with this one. It's the big daddy in the industry. There are a couple of other competitors that we're not talking about, like Unilever, Procter & Gamble is certainly up there. But these global players, I mean, they're typically quite well run. I guess the issue is, do they have the growth in them to justify the PEs they trade on?
Yeah, this one's been around for a long, long time, Paul.
Yeah.
And back in the 60s, it bought a company called Lancôme. And that's a very upmarket, top-end type of cosmetics company in there as well. And it's got quite a few other well-known brands in there. In fact, if you actually go and look at their website, you'd be amazed at the number of brands they've got. They've also got a 10% stake in Sanofi Aventis, the pharmaceutical company.
Exactly.
So again, they're hedging their bets here.
That's probably worth a packet.
That's worth a huge amount of money, absolutely. So again, they're diversifying their interest. This is not, you're not just buying into a few lipsticks and mascaras and things here. You're buying into something of some real gravitas here.
Yeah, because I think their Elsev hair care range is the world's largest seller by volume. Can you imagine the billion hectoliters of that stuff that gets manufactured? Talking of sales, I've got the numbers here. 36% Europe, 25% North America, 21% Asia Pacific, and the rest is elsewhere. So you can see the reason this share price hasn't really done all that much, it's because, and this is the listed entity that trades as an ADR in New York, it really hasn't done that much because the recovery of consumer spending in Europe has been a bit sluggish. And in the United States of America, they get a lot of competition from Colgate-Palmolive and Procter & Gamble and all the other players there. So they're not the market leader in that environment. The question really, I guess, is will they be able to grow? They say they will. The CEO, Jean-Paul Agon, talks all the time about how excited he is about Brazil, which is like such a huge potential market, 250 million people, all of whom want to look good. It's a very, and the same in India. There's an emerging middle class in all of these countries that really wants to be differentiating themselves from their rural cousins.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where the growth has been in the global economy in the past 2-3 years, it's been very much in the developed world. Yeah. And I think there's now a sense that the emerging economies, they've taken a real beating, a real battering. Now that may be about to change. And okay, it's not going to be as commodity-based as it was before. That's a whole other discussion. But I think the chances are you're going to see so many of these big multinational companies homing in on the emerging markets and these emerging economies and taking advantage of that improving spending power. Yeah. So I think they're on the right track, definitely.
Okay, one final point about this before we go to hot or not, and that's the shareholder base. So a third of the shares of L'Oreal belong to the Betancourt family. Yeah. Old lady Liliane Betancourt is now, 92. She's the second richest woman in the world. She's a bit bonkers, apparently. Her family are sort of having a few legal skirmishes of what's going to happen. I had thought for a long time that the other big shareholder in the business, which is Nestle, which I think owns something like a 15% stake, was going to be the not natural buyer. But it looks as though the company under Agon's leadership actually bought back some of the shares from Nestle.
Yes.
So I don't quite know. But in your experience, when a $100 billion company like this starts to have sort of somewhat of a loose shareholder situation, what happens? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is it neutral?
No, I think in this instance it's probably quite a good thing because you're talking about, although it's not the founding family, it is a family that has got a big slug of the thing. And I think they're going to be more and more keen to get their hands on as big a shareholder as they possibly can. And if Nestle is a loose holder, I think they'll be seen as being able to tap into that.
But there are plenty of institutional buyers. They could do a private placement book build, they could place script, they could buy some of it back. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something to worry about. Okay, in any event, I'm hot on this one. You're hot on it too?
Very hot on this one.
Okay, good. So this is the kind of stock you could look at as an international hold. Right, we're going to